But right now, I'd like to introduce Richard Dasher. He directs the U.S. Asia Technology Management Center here at Stanford. He's also the executive director for the Center for Integrated Systems. He holds consulting professor appointments at Stanford in the departments of electrical engineering, Asian languages and cultures, and at the Asia Pacific Research Center for his work with regions of innovation and entrepreneurship. He is also faculty advisor to student organizations such as the Forum for American Chinese Exchange here at Stanford. And in 2010, he served as a consultant to the Indus entrepreneurs in regard to their establishment of a worldwide remote mentoring program for entrepreneurs. He received master's and doctoral degrees in linguistics from Stanford. So let's welcome Dr. Richard Dasher. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you very much for that kind introduction. After that, you can tell why I have to leave at 3 o'clock, right? So actually what I want to talk about is just give you a few remarks that actually bear very closely to what the panel has just said. It has to do with our looking at entrepreneurship in the context of economic development. And this really springs off work that's done by a group called the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor, which is run out of Babson College. And every year they do a survey worldwide of almost 200,000 people. And they find out what percentage of the population in different countries are actively involved in entrepreneurship. They also find out, for those people who are not involved in entrepreneurship, what kind of attitudes they have toward entrepreneurship. Fear of failure, whether they see opportunities or not, that kind of thing. Well, out of their work, which has been going on for about 12 or 13 years now, it became obvious that you can divide the economies of the world into 3 groups. The 3 groups really correspond to different stages of economic development. The first stage that they recognize, their term, is called a factor-driven economy. That's nice and, opaque. But then again, when you see what's going on, you see China now and you see us at the end of the Depression. Right? Really, at the end of the Depression in the U.S., there were not very many salaried jobs for people, and so there was a high rate of entrepreneurial activity in modern-day China, in Thailand, in sub-Saharan Africa. There are very high levels of entrepreneurship in terms of percentage of the population. Now, you have a great deal of interest in education and long-term things, but really the opportunities for people are all about rolling out basic services, new services that people need in that domestic market. 60 years ago, do you know that the company Motorola started in the middle of the Depression? They were the first people to be able to put radios in cars that had already been made. It's amazing what is going on in China now really resembles us near the end of the Depression. As this urbanization increases, the basic competitive strategy is to get to the market first. That's why you don't see a lot of companies doing very difficult technology plays in China right now. They want to get that. A year before revenue is a long time in China. And it was fascinating to see the wave of Silicon Valley venture capitalists that went to China starting about 12 or 13 years ago. They thought that they were going to an economy with a high degree of education, high degree of literacy, so they thought they were going to get great new things like are coming out of the graduate schools here. Well, there are brilliant people in China, but they're looking after different kind of opportunities when they get out. And sure enough, the VCs started doing things like investing in factories that make milk cartons because milk consumption was growing by 60% a year. Right? So you see that at that first stage, it's pretty much domestic market focused. China's just about to get it to the end of that stage. In our analysis, we see that stage of factor-driven entrepreneurship of necessity as really ending when per person income reaches about $15,000 US. The figure in the east coast of Chinese cities now is about 19,000 US. The figure in the interior, though, is still, several $1,000s US per year. The next stage, the next thing that happens is something that corresponds to what the GM people, the Monitor people, call efficiency-driven economies. Your first wave of industry gets big. That leads to capital shortages and people shortages as they're trying to maintain their growth. Because you have people shortages, that's where things like lifetime employment customs in Japan arose. Those started in the 1960s in the period of high growth in Japan. The companies have to offer these things to get good people and keep good people. The governments during that phase of growth tend to want to pick winners. And so you get a lot of government kind of support, both financial and otherwise, of key industries at that phase. The kind of opportunity at that big industrial phase turns out to be who can scale up the best. How do you create new markets? And after a while, you've saturated your domestic market and you go global. This happened in Japan with the car companies in the mid-1970s. It's happening with the Korean car companies right now. It happened with the chip companies in Korea in the early 1990s, the display companies in Korea in the late 1990s. The companies are aware of the kind of S-curve of a product in a particular market. So at the beginning phase, you've got your early adopter market, then you've got great growth, and then as the market matures, what do you do? The easiest thing, and companies never take risk that they don't have to take, is to develop a new market for your existing business line. So they go global. This has had an impact, and now the world is indeed a global business place. It's a global place where collaboration is possible that wasn't before. But the problem is that this stage also has an end. It really lasts, in our analysis, from incomes at about $15,000 a year to about $35,000 a year if you calculate at purchase power parity. If you're calculating at official exchange rates, it's all screwy. But at purchase power parity, when you get up to about $35,000, you've got some big global companies in your economy, and they're looking for continued growth. What do you do next if you're a big company?